All right, here we are with Cory, Sound God, and we are recording a test podcast here, seeing what's up. Cory, what's up, man? Do you have any questions for me here?
I do.
All right,
My
let's
main
go.
question is, what is isness? What is isness, man?
What is isness?
Explain that to everybody.
Isness. Well, it sounds like a state of being. It sounds like being in the moment and not letting other thoughts and concerns consume you so that you pass through time without any sense of awareness. Isness is just being, which is the state that you want to be in. That would be my best guess.
I think that's a good answer. And it's not only being in the moment, it's also being the moment. Because, whenever you can get the light of consciousness to detach, associating the light of consciousness with your actual body, then your body just melts into the surroundings around you, and you can really start to feel that distinction. So not only are you there in space and time with that moment, but you also melt into all the physicality around you, and that adds this contrast to your, the light of your consciousness, and allows you to start making that distinction. And wherever you can make that distinction, then you start realizing that there's no difference between you and everyone else and everything else. And it's like, that's like a good Alan Watts quote is, he says that, it's the nature of being is that your backyard, and your neighbor's backyard is the same piece of land. The thing that separates those two things is a fence, but it's still the same piece of land. And that's how, being and all things are connected. It's like we put up these walls, and anything that, just because it's outside of our skin, people think that it's not us, we're not connected.
Because the connection is made in a dimension that we're not usually aware of.
That's right. That's right.
So the dimension that we're all connected is something that people are not either taught nor trained nor skilled enough to see at a general level. But if you go, as soon as you transcend that, meekest of third dimensions out to the other dimensions, you see that very clearly.
That's right. And everything in our daily lives is actually, it's all, they're trying so hard to pull us out of that reality. They're crush our chakras into these tiny, rotten little balls of just nothingness, man. And it's this sick fucking system where they go, okay, there's all these desperate people out here that have no idea about, spirituality or energy or being or any of it, or even consciousness.
But they can consume.
They can fucking consume. And so they go, it's this horrible thing where they go, okay, let's give a celebrity a bunch of free swag, like a Mercedes, a couple Mercedes and some watches or whatever. Right. And these people are wandering around, just, lost. And they see that is measured like materialism is measured as success here. So you see someone with material things and they think that their life is good because of the illusion.
Well, sometimes, it's an issue again of correlation and causation. A lot of times money does attend success. Joe Rogan has money and he's also successful.
Well,
what I mean? But it's not the causal effect. It's not like, doesn't mean that because you have money that you were successful.
Well, absolutely.
I think that's the thing. But people fail to make that distinction so often between this correlation and then a kind of a causation.
Oh yeah, and the evil part about it is that the corporations know that, and they go, okay, you don't feel good. Well, look how good this person feels that you don't really know. Well, look at what they have. If you have that, you can feel good and feel like them too. So someone goes and, they've got 3 kids and they've got a mortgage they can't afford, but they go get a Mercedes or some nice car or something like that because they're thinking that thing, they see this person being happy and they think that they're going to be happy if they have that. And of course, it's just sucking the life out of them. It's
so funny to watch that cycle. I know somebody who continually buys cars. He goes through an insane amount of cars, and each car he thinks is going to make him happier, but it doesn't.
No, of course
it doesn't.
Not, man.
It can't. And that's just not what he's going for.
Yeah.
And really, the corporations are bad, but when people talk about the corporations, it's almost like someone saying like, those fucking great white sharks, they eat, they bite and they fucking eat those fucking sharks. That's what they are.
Of course.
Man. They're designed as greed machines, and so to get mad at them for what they are, you can't. You just have to, and again, and that's also in my kind of Occupy Wall Street kind of philosophy is they're mad at Wall Street, but Wall Street is Wall Street. It's going to do what it's got to do. The problem is the government bailing them out. The problem with these corporations like Monsanto is the government giving them a fucking hand.
Yeah.
You know, and being like, oh yeah, here, sure, that's fucking fine.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be checks and balances. There needs to be nets for the people swimming so that the sharks don't fucking eat them, and the corporations are the sharks.
Absolutely. And, you know, the thing is like, they are sharks, and that's their nature. You know, and the reason I bring it up about the corporations, you know, that's just an example, because like, if you don't know that a shark is bad and you go swimming, you're going to get eaten really quick.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a waste of time to sit around going, oh, fuck those politicians or those sharks or those. I know.
I still think you can say fuck the politicians.
You can. I mean, you can, but I mean, that's not like, you know, I mean, the way I look at it, man, is that, you know, there's so many things around all of us every day trying to make us angry and feel aggressive and feel judgmental. And if you can extricate that from your daily life, man, you're going to be walking a real path, you know, a real beautiful path, just hopping in that river of Taoism, man.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's some kind of practical element to not carrying that anger. But at the same time, I mean, corporations are designed to earn money, right?
Sure.
They're designed. Politicians are designed to serve the better good of society. Well, you know, one is executing on its charge. Yeah. The other is not. And that's why I don't give the politicians any fucking slack. Those fucking crooks, you know, they're just out there for themselves. They've lost their sacred charge, which was to care for and take care of humanity. Whereas the corporations, they're just doing what the fuck they were designed for at the same time. But the corporations that I do cast, you know, quite a bit of blame for are the ones that, you know, are intentionally, you know, doing things that they know they shouldn't do for humanity's sake, you know. And some of the worst offenders for thousands of years have been the churches.
Oh, of course.
You know, those corporations have been, you know, the greediest, the most power hungry, the most savage out of any of them.
But do you think that all the politicians, and do you think that their script in this theater play, and their, you know, do you think that it's really like serving the good? I feel like it's, to me, and like the people I know, you know, you say, well, you know, they should be serving the good and helping the people and representing us and everything and making a more amicable society, but they're not doing that.
Right.
And you say they're not executing their function. But like, I guess you know, years ago ceased thinking that was their function. It's like, that's just their costume, man. That's not actually what they're doing.
Of course they're not doing it, but that's what they should be doing.
Well, it's what they should be doing.
That's what they were
at
designed
what point
to
do you go, you know, well, that's what they should be doing, but like a lot of people should be doing a lot of shit, and they're not. So like, don't even like. I guess I'm just saying, in my mind, I don't even see a place where there's like even like the biggest fantasy of fantasies that they could possibly ever do anything good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so why
the people have to fucking demand it, is the bottom line. I mean, we still put up with the shit, and that's why it exists. I mean, ultimately, you know, they can rig maybe a few votes here or there. Maybe they can swing 5% in a vote. You know, I don't even know. That's just something I think is possible. It's plausible that they can swing about 5%. But if humanity really fucking rises up and is like, we are sick of this shit, you know, we're voting it for this independent dude who we really trust, you know, they will not be able to stem that tide. But people are not fed up enough. You know, they're too busy worrying about their Mercedes or their Gucci or whatever the fuck they're worried about. So they're not mad enough. And, you know, unfortunately, that's why I feel like things have to get a little worse before there's going to be change.
Yeah,
because
of course.
even now, you know, it's still too comfortable. Ultimately, you know, Occupy Wall Street, it kind of fizzled out. Why? Because it's okay still. Life's all right.
Yeah.
You know, you're still going to the grocery store. You're still getting food. You know, maybe your debt's not exactly where you want, but you're getting by. You know, but when things get really tough, that's when people are going to start demanding changes. And that's why the government's freaking out and making all these NDAAs and all this other bullshit, because they know that, you know, times are going to come where the people are going to rise and they're going to try and squash it, but that's not going to work.
Yeah. Nothing like a few heads on a stick or two to get the point across, you know, and that's really, you know, like, it's kind of like the Obama effect. I watched that a little bit where things were so weird with Bush in control, especially, I remember like during the last year of his presidency, it was like every 3 days there was a headline on CNN that was like, oh, Republican, you know, eats a Jewish baby or whatever. And it's like, oh, haha, you know, that's the newest like Republican scandal for today. And it's like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
And it got so like comical to where it was like every couple of days there was just like, oh, this guy, you know, had the, he was exposed and, you know, embezzling $3 billion and, you know, whatever it was.
While sucking an intern cock.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. At the same time, he signed the check while he was sucking the cock.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and so it got so crazy, and then they were like, oh, yeah, we should probably roll back women's rights and stuff. You know, that sounds pretty good, you know? And it was all just, and it was like, what? And so, you know, it got to where, like, everything got so crazy and people started waking up. I had this interesting experience where I was standing in a coffee shop, and I was like standing there, you know, just kind of in my own head, and there was a newspaper down there that had Bush's picture on it. And I kind of just looked at it and I thought, man, that dude is like in this theater play, that guy is the strangest character. He is doing so much weird shit, you know, and I was like, I can't kind of believe that this is happening. It just doesn't feel real, you know, and he's just like willfuling, you know, sending a lot of people to their death and, you know, moving money around and doing all these things. And there were these two farmers behind me, and I was like downtown here, but there were these two farmers, you know, big callous hand guys, like they were, you know, wearing Wranglers and stuff, not ironically, you know, and like there were some real farmer guys, and I heard them talking, and they look at him and they were like, man, look at that Bush, that son of a bitch. And whenever I was sitting there and I thought, you know what? Whenever like a guy like me and a farmer are like having the same political thought, shit's about to get really different. Yeah, you know,
that's very true.
And I think that it did. It hit rock bottom, and that's like whenever Obama, he had the right marketing and came through, and everyone thought, okay, you know, it's gotten so bad, let's change it now. You know, or
I really felt like when Obama got elected, good defeated evil.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
I really felt. I mean, you saw McCain. And you saw this whole situation. I was like, good wins.
Yeah, he was like...
I've never seen it, but good wins before. And then what the fuck happened?
Oh, man.
You know, it's like,
where'd
you go, bro?
He was like Skeletor, man.
Yeah, he was, man.
That's every time I saw it, I was like, oh, man, it's Skeletor. But yeah, like, that's the thing. I mean, once you get in there, like, and it's got to be just... You know, the amount of like old, cold, bony hands that are in there grabbing it, fucking at everything and every angle. It's got to take, you know, even if you are the best person and, you know, you have the best intentions, you know, that can tear you apart. It can tear anyone apart. And like with the briefings that guy gets on a daily basis, like I couldn't deal with it. You know, I couldn't deal with it if someone was like, hey, by the way, the West Africa's on fire and people are starving all over the world, you know, and everyone wants to blow us up.
That's what Joe says too. You know, he says, yeah, you know, we think we'd all do a better job, you know, if we were in there, but it's so tough, you know, and the power corrupts. I understand that, but I know that there's a human response. Like all these fuckers are just so off center. Like if you center yourself and think not just with your reptilian brain, but with your heart, with your third eye, with your head, aligned like a fucking human should be, like our birthright was, you know, mind, body, and soul working as one, then you can figure out at least the best possible solution and make good fucking decisions, you know?
Yeah, but dude, didn't you know that there's this, I was reading about this thing where they actually have, it's under the White House, it's like a couple 100 feet under, it's all concrete, and anyone that comes in there and gets a position, before they'll actually sign off the position, they take them down the elevator and actually surgically remove their heart and third eye.
You think,
and then
right?
there's this huge shelf with all these jelly jars, man, with like Reagan's third eye, Bush's third eye,
and it's already all just withered.
Hardly
there,
exactly.
Like an old fucking raisin by the time they're 30.
Like if your grandmother like thought she could get that prune down and she was like chewing it up, but then the little thing that separates oxygen to water in your throat, you know, whenever you swallow, got kind of confused, and she just hacked it up on the table.
That was it.
That's the one. That's what it looks like.
It's funny, man.
But
you know, I think for the people who can see energy, and I've never been one of those. I've been pretty far, but I could never do it. But you know, like the shamans in the rainforest and things like that. Those politicians must be a funny sight. You know, they have the stories about the conquistadors. Their private name for the conquistadors were the gray ones, because the indigenous people, you know, with their spiritual practices, they glowed like rainbow, like their chakra looked like a rainbow. The conquistadors were just solid, muddled gray. And I don't even know what the fuck Bush would look like.
Oh man,
I mean, it would be really interesting.
It's got to be black. It's got to be or translucent. It's kind of nice translucent black.
It's like holy shit, it's not a person.
It's like if you pull an eel up out of the water, it's like it's black, but it's also kind of you sort of see through it a little bit. It's got that's what man. But you know, speaking of those people that can see, you know, chakras and just kind of exist on multiple planes
Yeah.
at once. I feel like for my practice, man, I've been into meditation and yoga and reading about consciousness and shit for about 20 years, ever since I was really young. Like I started that whenever I was like 12, 13. I started getting into that type of stuff, and I feel like, to me, my kind of what someone like Maharaji or someone would say, where they talk about existing on all these planes of consciousness at once, but other people, you tend to kind of surf these different planes. You can only do one at a time, but you'll kind of shift and surf, and that's how I feel. Like one day I'll feel on this particular plane, next will be the next. But man, if you ever meet somebody that is in that that kind of transcends space and time and is just got so much light and awareness about them that they can see shit that you can't see. And this fellow I know that's he's in his 50s. He's this ex-Black Panther dude that and there's all these weird, like, if you talk, I'm such a skeptical person. Yeah. And if you talk to any of these people that have met anyone that's a complete being, there's all this little, it almost like it almost seems like a joke, like of the conveniences and the synchronicities and all those things, where it's like, oh yeah, I was out on the boat and I was thinking about my mother, like Richard Alpert says, and he goes up. Now I talked to Maharaji and he said that you were out there thinking about your mother, and then I fell apart. That's beautiful, but like for me to like really believe that someone could have that type of consciousness to read minds, it's really hard to believe.
It is a challenge.
So there's all those little
and then there's so many. It's difficult. Whenever I meet a spiritual person, my default is skepticism. If this is some shaman or this I'm introduced, my default is skepticism.
It's because America's a hall of mirrors, man.
Yeah, exactly. So and a lot of times you end up right, and then seldomly you end up and say, holy shit, this guy's got some power. Yeah. And those are the cases. And what really defines it is the people who act spiritual and like put on that spiritual face. Oh yeah. They're usually the ones that are charlatans. Of course, man. Like always. These shamans that I've met out in the rainforest and elsewhere, they're the first to laugh, the first to smile, like very real people you would never know was a shaman, except when they start to do work. Yeah. They start to mold dimensions around you, and you're like, holy shit, what is this guy doing? But to go back to how I envision, ourselves aligned with the different dimensions, it's almost like we're a toothpick piercing all of the dimensions like layers in an onion. Mm-hmm. And it's actually just that we're not surfing in one or the other. It's just at certain points our consciousness is traveling up and down that toothpick. Yeah. So we're hitting usually third dimension. That's the dot on the toothpick that we're kind of, that's the layer of the onion we're looking at. But we're really always all connected all the way up through everything. But the shamans can travel that a lot easier.
Or all at once. They can be all there at once.
And just kind of,
and I guess I mean, like my metaphor with waves is it's that
almost
same type of thing.
You expand the dot, of where your consciousness
is.
So
it
encompasses all the layers. And I actually was able to experience that when I was taking ayahuasca. During that, I mean, I could feel that expansion where I could still function in the third dimension. I could hit a tennis ball if I needed to. Like if I was like, all right, we're gonna rally here for a second for some weird reason, right?
All right, guys, we're in the rainforest. Look at that beautiful green tennis court.
But I could still do that, so I could still operate in the third. But the way I could see and focus in those other dimensions was unique. So it's almost like, exactly like that dot was expanded.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
More people.
Yeah, whenever I was talking about the waves, it's like that was just a metaphor for like, I guess, skipping between those different things instead of like, and then sometimes you'll get stuck on like level 7 or level 1, depending on what you've been up to.
And with other medicines, that certainly happens. Like at a certain point on a mushroom trip, you're fucking stuck in 5 or 6. Yeah. Like you can't really function in the other ones very well. Yeah. It's more tricky. Ayahuasca is the first where I really felt like I could kind of glow with all those. Even the iboga, that was a weird, I don't even know what dimension it was. That was like just inside my soul of some, I really felt like I was just accessed to, that infinite part of myself rather than even outward to any other thing. I don't even know how to apply that to the metaphor. Is basically what I'm saying. It was such a unique and different experience, completely different than any other psychedelic experience, but obviously immensely powerful. So
maybe perhaps white noise is the entire frequency spectrum all at once.
Yep.
That could be it.
Could be it.
You had consciousness white noise, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, it was almost like I was for that period, an infinitely knowledgeable being on a very uncomfortable third dimension body at that point.
Yeah.
It was like I was my God self, my best self, living and accessing in this third dimension world, which was pretty miserable at the time. I mean, I couldn't drink. I was nauseous.
Yeah.
I was, my body felt like it was being pressed by a pancake, and I was stuck in a high voltage shed.
I hate that feeling.
But yeah, I mean, the truth that was riding on my shoulder. I mean, that was a fucking experience like no other.
Yeah.
Like, man, even thinking about it now, it was just such a pleasure. Such a pleasure
to me,
access that.
It sounds like if you're like driving a little, like a little Honda, like an 89 Honda or something, and you're on a racetrack with a bunch of other race cars, and all of a sudden you're keeping up with them, but your vehicle is still this Honda, and you're like, oh God, it's rattling, it's going to fall apart, and it's redlining, but I'm still going 200 miles an hour, so I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm here.
Man.
It's like the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely it.
Yeah, but it's funny how like those little like flash bombs of I don't know, it's almost like magic or something. You can where you can have those type of realities and those type of consciousness shifts, and then once you have enough of those, you realize that's all here all the time.
Yeah,
it's always here.
Yep.
And whenever you think about, you start getting tense, you're annoyed at something or frustrated. You're like, what am I doing? Like that reality of the most beautiful, like aware, clearest consciousness that you had in that moment, like that's with you now.
Yep.
But you're so distracted and like pulled into just the show. You're in the theater watching the action film, and you've got the white knuckle grip on the theater seats.
That's it. It's the wrong. It's as my lesson taught me. The wrong person's in charge. Your mind's in charge when that being, that soul, that infinite God self should be the one running the show, but so often not. So often it's not.
And most people never. I don't think they never do that. They never experience it, or they experience it, but they're not aware of what it's like, and so they attribute it to something else.
Right.
Like that's, I think, probably a lot of churches or something like that. They somehow, if they say they have some type of experience with, some religious experience with like some Western type of church, and it's like, no, you were touching on a plane, but it had nothing to do with all that. That was just a weird. You just like, luckily, you were like lost in the mountains, and you were wandering around, and you're covered in scabs and sores, and you just kind of like, your milky, kind of watery eye that was all dehydrated, and you saw a little bit of sunlight, and you pulled it back, and then, oh wow, there's a beautiful path. You actually sort of ended up there. You went foraging. You should have starved to death, but you got lucky.
Well, some of them have figured out, like the churches that do the kind of ecstatic singing and and the breathing and things like that. So you're creating these weird states in your mind where that cognitive filter, like Aldous Huxley talked about, starts to become porous. And you start to let in more of that mystic sensation. So and they've utilized that to their advantage all the time. They give you a piece of this mystical experience, and then put it and then say, aha, you see, that proves that we're right about everything. Because how have you ever experienced this before?
Yeah, they're using it for evil.
Truly. In a lot of ways. I mean, now churches are way less evil, but if you take it historically in context, I mean, what's been more evil than the church?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the deaths caused,
Yeah.
either in its name or directly, by Inquisition. Man, I went to a dungeon, and it was in Italy, and I went to a dungeon of the Inquisition. That is the most fucked up place in the fucking world.
Yeah, it's like being in Urban Outfitters or
how do you even
something.
fucking think of all of these? Like
Sorry,
that,
man.
like that, except for the part where there's the hot pinchers that pull open your dick.
Yeah.
And like, what possible good reason does the church have for putting a hot pincher in your dick and ripping it open? Like, why?
It's a very good reason, man. It's because nobody. No, I'm serious.
I'm sure.
It's because they like. What else? What would convince you more to not stray from what they want you to be doing than a hot pincher in the dick? Man?
That's true.
You know
That's
what I mean?
true.
It's like they just really knew how to commit back then, man. They're like, we want these people to be doing this, and what gets people to not do things we don't want is fucking
hot
searing
pincher in the dick.
pain. Yeah. And now it's moved to, since we've all become a little bit more aware of our bodies, over the last couple hundred years. Now it's like it's all psychological, man.
Yeah, guilt.
And that's the thing that
Those barbs.
Yeah, whenever I see people that are or talk to people that are caught up in that, man, it's just so tragic. And and that's I used to like be really aggressive towards religion.
Same with me, man. That's when I was in college. I was fucking pissed. I was livid.
Yeah,
I was going to be the next Christopher Hitchens, even though I didn't know who that was. Like, I was fucking mad.
Totally, man. And and I realized that I just resented it and was mad at it because I thought there's all these people that their entire lives, man, they're just like scared and they don't ever feel the beautiful pleasure of like whenever I walk outside and I go, holy fuck, like I'm a person, there's a brain and a meat body on a planet floating in the middle of the universe. Like that's how I feel every single day, and it's like if you can't, people go their whole lives without understanding just the majesty and beautifulness of the cosmos, man, and just feel feel your feet on the earth and feel the earth touching you back, You're sewn right into the fabric of the cosmos, man, and
they take away that whole thing. They take away that experiential connection to the mystic, you know, and that's something that all the shamans hammer in. They're like, our beliefs are experiential. You can go out there and find them for yourself. We're not going to tell you, we're not going to tell you what's up. You're going to go see it for yourself. And the church they don't want that,
of course,
because then you start to see through the veil that they've carefully created. So they create this they're the intermediary between the mystic, like so they can communicate, but you have to go through them. It's just fucking unreal that they've basically, cut that part off of humanity. So we have all these people who are living, without 1/3 of what it really truly is to be a human. And that's also that's the fucking part that helps you decide everything else. That's the heart of morality.
Sure.
That's the heart of where you figure out what is right and what is good. And they've just cut that off. And guess what? Not only have they cut that off, they've made the ways to find it illegal. Like once you're out of it too long, like you can fucking meditate all you want, but you need an earth mover. You need the big tractor trailer to come in and take off fucking heavy amounts of dirt so you can go back and find and reconnect. And that shit's illegal. You got to go to fucking Peru or Costa Rica or wherever, or just have a cool buddy who can give you some mushrooms. But even still, you're taking a risk, and it's bullshit. And people are scared of it. Not only is it illegal, but they propagandize it as well.
You have to, man. And it's like the church, those type of institutions, man, religious institutions and other different things like that. It's like whenever I see those, I'm just like, well, that's a line up everybody and pay it to get your spiritual amputation. You go in there and they're like, all right, that guy's, let's take off his spiritual legs and fucking put a hot poker on that to sear it so it can't grow back and move along, give us your 10% of your income.
It's like baptizing is drowning it.
It's like,
your third eye's open, sweet, let me douse it in water until you fucking wake up and it's dead.
Yeah, man. You ever have I think a great, as far as people that are trying to get into meditation and stuff, I think that's the best way to clear the runway, to clear, just to get all the debris off your own runway to get ready to take off,
Yes, after the fucking major boulders and piles of shit, are cleared off. I mean, I don't think people can effectively meditate until they've at least experienced the other side, at least experience what true being is.
It's hard to
meditation, they don't really know what they're going for.
Yeah.
I meditate with people and they're like, well, how do you do it? I can't meditate. Because you've never been to where you're trying to get, that place where you release all thoughts and release your mind and release everything, and you find yourself in alignment and connection. They've never experienced it, so they're just like, well, I'm not supposed to think about anything, and I'm not supposed to fall asleep, so we're going to try this out. And maybe they feel a little better, but I think really the first step is getting people to experience that, like really getting them to feel what it is to just be and connect. And I really think, the plant teachers are one of the only ways to do that, because we're going to start off way out of balance anyways, unless you're in a really lucky situation where you have a very, spiritually tuned in family and live out in the fucking in the bush somewhere.
I've never met someone that's come from that family.
One of my good friends is Bodie Miller, and he's not trained spiritually at all, but he grew up in a house that had no running water. He's the Olympic skier. I don't know if you know who that is. But he grew up in a house that had no running water and out in the middle of New Hampshire. And he basically didn't have much supervision, but he was just outside all day, either on the mountain by himself, going up, cruising down, or running through creeks, or out in the forest, or, and he was, as a teen, he's like making his own sweat lodges and figuring it out. And somehow being that, that has instilled kind of a centeredness to him that's unlike almost anybody I've met. And I think so it is possible to get that by just living in nature, figuring shit out. Because nature is the ultimate teacher, so he wouldn't need, some massive psychedelic experience to realign him. Like, he grew up with it. Like, he's well aware of it, almost like a Native American who walks his feet on the earth every day, like, they don't need to take a fucking grip of mushrooms to feel it. They can do that, once they're already there, they take that, and then it's like rocket fuel. They're ready to really take off and figure shit out. But it is possible to live in alignment if you started that way. But most of us are not started that way. We got our Jordans on the pavement and a bunch of fucking television and video games and all kinds of shit. So at that point, the only thing I think that can really realign you in a massive way is one of the plant medicines, under the guidance of a good shaman.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like all of those things you're talking about, him being, on this, basically getting to hang out on the side of a mountain as a young child, and like seeing that mountain and seeing the sky and the stars and everything. Yeah, that is the immediate contrast that you need with yourself to understand that you're a part of all of that. And there's an infinity there, between a loop between you and it, and you are it. Yep. But in our culture, where we live, there's like, in between the nature and like the self, there's all of this shit right here, which are the cars, the video games, the shoes, the handbags, the fancy hotels, and all, whatever you have. And those are all the material things, all the distractions, man, and it's a really, how could somebody ever just be born into a normal family and, without some type of extreme experience, see through all of that? It's so heavily programmed, and it's so heavily, just aimed at everybody that, that just every normal person out there. And that's why I was kind of talking about meditation being a good first step for people. Like, if somebody, just like random guy, that has read none of the, the books that you and I have probably read, right, and had none of these thoughts, and not because he's not capable, but just because he's just a guy, like, he's just living his life and doing what he thinks right, And I'll kind of tell someone like that, meditation is a good place to start, like, looking. Like, you can start looking for those things, and you don't even have to do anything. I'll say, like, just sit. Like, just sit for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night. And just, that's it. You don't try and not think about anything, because that's the infallible way of making sure to think about something. Yeah. And it's like, just sit for a while and just keep doing that. And eventually, after like a couple of weeks and you're doing your 15 minutes just sitting, then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wait a second.
I think you're right there. I mean, I think like Aldous Huxley said, there was doing psychedelic work is like a banquet. It's like a feast. It takes a while to prepare. You get a ton of material in your system, and it takes a little while to recover. Whereas meditation is like your daily sustenance. Yeah. But I really think that a lot of these people, they don't even know what kind of food they're looking for. So they're out there trying to meditate. They're just smearing food all over their face. And, but by doing that, some's going to get in your mouth. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. Eventually you're going to figure it out a little bit. But, man, it's just way easier once you've already seen that other way. But,
of course. Man.
But, I'm the last person to say don't meditate no matter how fucked up you are, because just that sense of stillness, even if you're not really aligning with the other, just quieting the mind for a minute, is something remarkable. I mean, so many people, even that moment before bed, they'll fall asleep with the goddamn TV on.
Yeah, or reading, Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. So it's like they don't even have that moment right before bed where you get to kind of process some thoughts and drift naturally into sleep. It's like input from some, external input, and then blackout, and then they wake up and they're back at it again. And it's just, they never get that moment. So, meditation is extremely valuable, and it's going to become, more valuable as technology gets fucking more crazy.
Yeah, man. That's what I try and think about is, you get so used to your own reality. You get so used in the things and it's like this. It's like working on this mixer. Yeah. To me, like, a mixer is, I know it like the back of my hand, and what all the things do. But whenever, you're looking at it, it's like, oh, what's that do? What's that do? And you learn really quickly, but it's like you weren't familiar with it all. And so if you think about like our different reality maps in that moment where, it was all familiar to me and it seemed like second nature, but then you needed to learn it right quick.
Yep.
And, has obviously you're a very intelligent person, but it's just that you hadn't been familiarized with that type of system.
Yep.
And that's how like the expansion of consciousness is for a lot of people. So whenever I try and talk to friends of mine or people that I meet, I remember, okay, like they don't know how to work this mixer. You know what I mean? They need to be shown really quick, and you got to find a starting point. It's like if I came in here and started, it was like, hey, how are you doing? Let's talk about like triode, pentode, harmonic enhancements and stuff. And sound.
I would have thought you were a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Not only would have thought I was a dick, but then you'd be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Get out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I do that? And so I think it's the same type of thing. Is like, I try and find these starting points where I remember, oh yeah, like I think about this stuff all day long, every single day. Like I'm so disembodied at this point. Like this little joke of mine is I'll be like brushing my teeth and I'll go over to my girlfriend and be like, hey, the alien is scrubbing its head hole again. It's like that's how fucking like detached I am. But most people, man, they never have a thought like that, or they think it's funny or weird or something. But so it's like I try and think of these ways to get people just to kind of take that first step. And that's like, I think meditation is a cool thing because you can't really go up to like your uncle or something and go, hey man, you should try 7 grams of mushrooms. You got to be
depends on your uncle.
Well, of course, but you got to be like, hey, you should you should try like meditating, just sit and resting the body, man. If you can get your vehicle to rest a little bit and to get centered, then the mind is the next thing that kicks in. And it's a good.
That's another thing. I mean, people take such shit care of their bodies.
Yeah.
And I actually think yoga is a pretty good form of active meditation because sometimes you need that external distraction, or not external. I mean, it's internal. It's your body, but you need that physical stimulus distraction to kind of help quiet the mind sometimes.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend. I always recommend yoga.
That's what
these people. I mean, it's something physical. It's good for their body. It's stretching out.
Yeah.
Pockets and muscles and things that need to be stretched. And it's also, a good way to find meditation. I mean, Shavasana has been, which is the final rest period for those who don't do yoga at the end of most good yoga. You lay down there. It's called corpse pose. And you lay down, your palms up and your heels open, and you just kind of receive. And at that point, your body's kind of exhausted. You sweat a lot. At least I go to hot yoga, so you sweat a lot and you feel really good. And you can travel. You're just light. You can travel fast and far in those kind of short meditations. They go 3 minutes, and they say, all right, now got another class coming in. You're like, whoa,
Man,
like a little mini DMT trip that you're taking there, and it's just fucking fast.
Man, I'm always in corpse pose.
Yeah,
yeah. Just any time of day, man. No matter what I'm doing, I'm like, just look at that silly little meat sock.
Yeah.
It's just full of, it's just got this little squirt of ego in there, man. It's just wandering around, this dead, this dead little meat sock, man, just trying to, move this light along. I had this crazy, I'll tell you about this really quick. I had this crazy dream. It was this lucid dream, probably thanks to the alpha brain.
All right. I'd like to hear it.
And as a quick digression, man, I had no idea that Alpha Brain was based in Austin.
Yeah.
And after I heard about it and I ordered the first one to try it out, it got to me in like a day.
You're like, damn, that customer service is good.
I was like, holy shit, man! These guys are like, did they give him the postman this shit too?
Yeah.
Or what? But then I saw it was based in Austin. I was like,
we can almost high-powered slingshot it to your house, actually.
Totally.
So we'll work on that delivery system next time.
So anyway, man, so I had some Alpha Brain, and then I had this dream where it was one of these super lucid things, like I totally felt awake during it, and I was just laying there. And I'd done, I'd gotten really deep on, I do what I call like lazy yoga every day, which is just like, it's kind of like different resting postures. So you're not like going crazy where you're, trying to lick your own asshole or anything, but you're definitely stretching the extremities.
Which is the goal of all yoga, actually.
Of course, man. Of course. Have you seen some of those babas over there, man? That's the type of stuff they do. They're like, I'm enlightened. I can like put a pencil around my dick and twist it 80 times or whatever. And that's like them showing off. And it's like, man, that's an interesting goal, my friend.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah. Anyway, so, I did some real deep, vibrations, and really lowered it down, or sped it up, however you want to say. So I was in bed and, had this dream that was like just this body, and I was laying there, and it felt like a kind of like a salvia thing or something, where it's this, oh yeah, this the XYZ axis of space and time is just right here, hanging out, and you can see like there's blackness for 100,000 feet, on all sides around you, kind of that type of thing. And I was laying there, and I had these gigantic hands, these huge hands, like coming down and like messing with my body. And I was...
That's your uncle, fool.
Yeah, damn, I shouldn't have. I gave him the wrong capsules. I gave him the ecstasy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I felt these giant hands like messing with my body. And I was thinking, oh, what's going on? It was like fixing, like tinkering, like my body was like a machine.
Yep.
And it started communicating through just kind of these vibrations through the hands into me, telling me that it was like, don't worry, your consciousness is this light inserted into this vehicle, which is your body. And I'm just helping you out because you're doing a good thing. Like what you're doing with your life is you're doing what we need you to do. And so I'm basically going to repair your vehicle a little bit. And it was like, there's also some kind of rotten part of your spirit inside. I'm going to help kind of like if something is burned and you can knock off the ashes and then kind of, okay, well, that's still burned, but it doesn't have all the gnarly stuff hanging on. It was like, I'm going to take that gross kind of corroded part of your soul away and fix that. And it was like, I'm going to fix you up because what you're doing is basically your life, your body is just a nonsensical vehicle thing. And what we do is we are on this other plane where we take these little light consciousness things, drop them into these bodies, and then they run their course on this plane in order to generate energy for this other plane.
Whoa.
And so it goes, the more times that you do this and you do your service and you can figure out how to generate the right type of energy and vibration for this plane, you'll eventually get graduated up into other more intense because you have the ability to generate more energy. And then eventually you'll get to a place where you start helping others and repairing others and you get assigned a bunch of smaller people to help, control them. So he was like, you're on the right path. And I'm kind of like, we don't fix things like vehicles normally, but I'm going to fix you and help you get ready for the next half of your life.
That is a powerful dream, my friend.
It was amazing.
That sounds extremely psychedelic, and I guess it just attests to the fact that when you're, doing your earnest to stay aligned and stay open, something as simple as sleep can give you as profound a psychedelic experience as any of these medicines can do. I mean, that's a testament to that there. It's funny that you say that because at a certain point in an early mushroom trip I had, and I haven't really paid much attention to this belief system either, but it came to me in this early trip, and it was remarkably similar to what you were saying. It was basically saying that, by spreading that life force energy, that which is good, which is our ultimate goal in being this, not only to experience everything in the physical realm, but also to promote life and promote good and promote love. By generating that energy, that was actually the force that was carrying our universe out farther in its expansion. And at the point where life stopped doing that, that's the point where the energy of the universe ran out of steam and actually started to collapse on itself again.
That's interesting.
And so it was a really kind of similar thing that I had, and I haven't really thought too much about it because, I don't know, you just kind of brought it up here. I mean, certain aspects of it have been, repetitive themes in my experiences, like the Iboga experience where I viewed the universe as the heartbeat of God, and God was running because... that whole, I don't need to repeat that whole thing. Well, maybe I should. Well, anyway, so I viewed the universe when I asked Iboga, I was like, what's the nature of the universe and infinity? And I saw these planets expelling out. It's like, boom, and I saw all the planets going and going. And then I saw them eventually running out of energy. And when they ran out of energy, they started to collapse on themselves. And then boom, another big boom, and life and all of its creations and all of its glory came out, spiraling out again. And obviously this takes place over trillions, billions of trillions of years or whatever.
It transcends time.
It transcends time, exactly. But all of that was then contained inside a giant heartbeat. And that heartbeat was in this translucent blue titan, which I understood to be God. And God was running on this track. And God's running was giving the energy for the heartbeat to keep pumping. They kind of fueled themselves. And I understood at that point that God's love was the commitment to keep running, to keep this heart pumping, keep life going and life flowing. So some themes, have stayed, stayed with me. And the one of the universe, the energy of the universe going out and then collapsing, that's been one of my earliest truths. But then the idea that we were actually generating that energy was something I kind of dropped along the way. But now that you bring it up, it's kind of a curious thing to think about. And probably in some way, maybe not in this kind of direct correlation like I first saw it, or maybe like your dream said, but maybe there is some aspect of that. Maybe it's not only that it gives it energy, but it's why it exists in the first place. You do that, it all exists so you can do that, so that you can push that energy out there in the universe. It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about, if you can put out more than you're taking in, that seems to not only just be the best way to, live your life, but it also, the more you do that, the more things kind of come to you. And I've always had this weird kind of problem with that, where people say, man, if you just do good and you keep being good, and you do things for the right reasons, like good things will happen to you. That feels a little weird to me, because it's like, well, I'm not doing it because I want good things to happen to me. I don't care what happens to me.
Right.
Like, I don't need anything good to happen to me. Like, I'm fine. I'm just chilling in my meat body, man.
Right.
Like, I don't need anything else, And so, but anyway, if you can, if everyone can get to that type of place where they're putting out more than they're taking in, then it's going to generate more of that type of energy and add more to the expansion, or to the, where the power transformer for some other dimension of sentient ancient beings, whatever it might be. I mean, it seems intuitively, it feels like the path, and getting all those vibrations in sync. I don't know, the next question, of course, is like, for what purpose? And it's like, if we are generating energy for these ancient beings in the DMT world, or this other, layer of the universe, or we're generating energy to make the universe expand, like you were talking about, like, to what end,
That's a question that's never been difficult for me, and that goes to the very meaning of life. Why are we here? Because it's fucking magic here.
Yeah.
You know what? It's fucking magic here. You get to love, you get to laugh, you get to cry, you get to fight, you get to fuck, you get to smell, you get to eat. You don't get to do any of that shit in the spirit world.
I'm dirty. I do all those things at once.
Perfect.
Sandwich, crying, laughing, fucking, smoking, eating.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's why, man. I mean, there's magic here. There's real magic here.
Absolutely.
And when you have that, when you're in that kind of universal, perfect truth of God, there's some bliss, but there's not that fucking magic.
Yeah, those bliss ninnies you got to watch out for, man.
Yeah.
The people, it's like you're talking about the people that go around. I can't remember if we were talking about this before we started recording or not, but
no, I think it was on the podcast.
Okay, the people that say, "Oh, I'm really working, my optimum to dissolve my ego."
Right.
And that's like, what it's like, come on, man. Those are the people that are they're way more arrogant than like a sports star. It's because you're like a snake with its tail in its mouth, man, walking around going, "Oh, I'm so much holier than you." And I've really found the secret. It's like, man, if you can even define the secret, then you need to reassess, because the secret has no definition.
Yep.
It's like it's just the state of being is what's beautiful and what's magnificent, And I totally agree and love that idea of living just to, be here and to be now, and just observe this, just the multiplicity of just fireworks that it is, just being awake, and
yep. I think that's it. And to go back to kind of another point that you were just saying, I think, so there's the people who are, affecting spiritual, those pseudo spiritual, and they're the fucking worst.
Yeah.
But then, there's another group that I think are missing it too. And those are the ascetics. Those are the people who are denying themselves all of the earthly enjoyments.
Sure.
And, I think Carlos Castaneda said it well, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, denying oneself is an indulgence. It makes you feel like you're doing great things when really you're just focused on yourself.
Absolutely.
So you think like, oh, I don't have sex and I don't eat and I don't,
abstaining is an addiction.
Yeah, exactly. And you feel like you're doing this magnanimous thing. What are you doing? you're just not fucking and not eating. Like, who's that helping? You? Only you. It's not helping anybody else. So you feel like you're, doing some incredible thing just because other people aren't doing it. But really, you're just focused on yourself. Why don't you help another motherfucker?
Yeah.
It's like stop spending all of your time doing something that makes you feel good for some reason, which is the abstaining part, and actually go help somebody.
Yeah, if it's funny that someone that spends their whole story, their whole like what they're about is the middle way, is like got the they're jerking the wheel in the car, they're like scrubbing the wheel to the curb, man.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, I'm the middle way. I'm so centered and so focused, and I am walking this path of enlightenment, and I'm not bothered by food or by sex or by attachment. It's like, man, you're just doing the opposite of having lots of sex and lots of food. It's
Right.
like, if we're in the middle way, man, just find the balance between both of those things. It's like all things are weighted,
Exactly.
And as you said, it's just this weird form of ego trip where it's like, oh yeah, I can't be bothered with that. I'm fasting. It's like, unless you're doing that because you're not comfortable enough with your body to get a colonic, man. Yeah. I don't know what, you're just wasting time.
Yeah.
And it's that's why I kind of used to really
or just fucking do it. Don't talk about it. Like if you're just gonna if you're gonna fast, great.
That's it.
Just don't make a big deal about it.
That is it. That is it. That's why, I think about that and talk to people about that all the time. I'm like, a lot of people I run into, I never talk about stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because like, why would you? Like, just do what you're doing and live your life and try and, do all of those things we've been talking about. But there's no reason to everyone you meet, oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, I was thinking about, the most bizarre, detached level of consciousness earlier. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's
Right.
like, what kind of asshole? It's like me
Right.
walking in here talking about some crazy sound shit with you straight off. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, what are you doing? Just do your stuff, And
Well, it's like any professional you meet, any like really professional that you meet, and like Stephen Pressfield said, he talks about professionals in the War of Art. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
But a real professional, you're not going to know what they do right off when you meet them. You know, like if it's a professional tennis player, they're not going to meet you and be like, "Hey, guess what? I just won Wimbledon 7 years ago." Like, did you know that about me?
I think, oh, your thighs look like that fucking boar outside. You must be a tennis player.
Yeah, and it goes with anything, like fighters, whoever,
Totally.
like a real professional
Artists, man.
artist.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, exactly. Like a really good artist, they're gonna be like, they'll maybe a little weird, and you might be like, oh, what's up with that guy? But he's not gonna just be ranting about what he does.
Yeah.
You're just gonna find that out later from some other buddy. Like, oh, by the way, that's a best-selling author, or oh, by the
Totally.
way, that dude's painting just sold for $2 fucking mil.
Yeah, let me tell you a hilarious story regarding this very same thing. So I'm not going to say who or where or when, but years ago, whenever I was performing at this little show, right? It was like a bunch of different, avant-garde artists come together and do this like, experimental music type thing. And so this one guy, he gets off the bus and or the van, someone got him from the airport, and he comes walking over. And this person was putting together, like, hey, this is Cory Allen. Do you guys know each other? And of course, I was just like, hey, how are you? And the guy just, kind of pushed up his Ray-Bans and slithered on inside.
I hate him already.
And walked
I hate him
by.
already.
He slid right on by, man, and didn't say anything. And I thought, oh, okay, all right, man, And so then this other guy pops out, this Japanese guy. He's like, hey, how are you? Hey, how's it going, man? How are you? Nice to meet you. I thought, oh, great to meet you too. And it was like we had known each other forever. We were just like hanging out, talking. Like, hey, you want to go grab some food? All right, cool. So then during the show, this percussionist, I'll say it's Tatsuya Nakatani, is this amazing Japanese percussionist. Mm-hmm. He gets in there and he just is like a beast, man. He's like barbecuing the brain's chakras, just doing the most crazy, one-man drum thing. It's just this orchestra of the most beautiful sounds, And this other guy, Mr. Ray-Bans, that slid on past me and ignored me, his thing was... he had some old, like those old white computer monitors from the 90s that you'd like clip onto the side of your monitor.
Right.
He had those and a cassette player and a tape of piano recordings, and he was pressing play and holding fast forward to get the tape to squeal. So that is a beautiful example
Yeah.
for just the spiritual world, man. It's like the people that are the most in tune are the most human and the most subtle and
That's
most
it.
loving. And the people that are the most out of tune or involved with their ego, they need to put on this show because they're lacking in real substance, you know?
Yep.
And someone that's a wealth of substance and a wealth of energy, they don't need to talk about it. I mean, I know, like, whenever I came in here and we met, I didn't even worry about it. I was like, I can feel this guy's, like, I can feel his energy. I can feel he's grounded. I have no worries about coming into some dude's house to help him
Right.
because I thought, you know, he was going to have a cool podcast. I wanted to help him get it going. You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about it at all.
Yeah, you
And-
get it. It's important to have that sense. So for so many people, that whole sense is gone. You know, like
Yeah.
they've lost that kind of ability to kind of read someone's energy. I think, you know, obviously you have it, and I think, you know, I have it as well. I know Joe Rogan has it too. His is strong. You know, I mean, and I think you can just get a sense about somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the ultimate, you know, first survival instinct that
Yeah,
that
exactly.
we've kind of somehow lost. But I think it's just a
sucked
matter
into the TV.
yeah, exactly. It's just we're too numb. We got too much
Yeah.
filth on our apertures. You know, we can't see
Totally.
that shit. But I mean, that's important. People should be able to kind of sync up like that easier than they are. But everybody's very guarded. You know, so you're both not only keeping your energy in, you're trying not to give a fuck about what everybody else's energy is.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it's fucked up, and you don't want to take it in.
And that stuff
You know,
is,
so-
man, energy is so contagious. I was talking to my brother about this a couple of days ago where, you know, positive energy is just as contagious as negative energy, though, you know, and you can walk into a room, and that's, you know, that's what I always try and do, man, is just churn that love butter straight out of my chest, you know, just feel it, absorb all the energy and just churn that love butter straight out, man, and serve it up, you know.
Be careful saying love butter on your chest. All right, I'll just give you a warning now.
I'm comfortable with myself, man. I'll say whatever, you know. I'll turn it right on my face. Love butter, you know, wherever you
I
want
mean,
it.
it's sometimes, occasionally, accidentally, you'll churn some love butter on your own chest, but it's always a bummer when that happens. Like,
Or you just get a piece of bread
Son
and
of a bitch.
toast it and wipe it up.
It's not Vegemite. It's not.
So anyway, you know, it's like you can, you know, like energy is so contagious, and that's the friend I was talking about who is like what I would say he's like a shaman or a complete being that I know, you know. That guy is so contagious. It's amazing. Like the first time we ever met, I was just shopping through like jazz records, and he was looking through jazz records. Like I said, he's this older dude. He was ex-Black Panther, like back in the 70s in Philly, and we started talking, and I was like, man, this guy's got a crazy vibration, you know?
Yeah.
And so we started talking and stuff, and then before we know it, he's like, hey, man, let me give you my home address and phone number if you ever want to hang out. And I was like, I've never had anybody, a stranger, just give me their address.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got 10 kids and I homeschool them all, man. You can come over. We'll break bread. It's like we got a crazy tribe over here. And I'm like, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I wrote my phone number down, and I just felt this inexplicable, like I'd known him forever. And I wrote my phone number down. He looks at it. He starts laughing. I was like, what? He was like, man, that was my number when I was in jail for blowing up a draft board office. Your phone number was my cell number.
Weird.
And I was like, whoa. I mean, his person in jail
Yeah,
number.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, wow. But this guy, man, he's one of these dudes where I've never experienced anything like it, and never since. Where he just like, he'd come over, you know, we'd talk. He'd come over at 6 p.m. and he'd be over until 11 a.m. and we just do this. We just talk like this the whole time, and somehow I had all the energy in the world, and I felt like high from it. You know, would just feel stoned from his presence, and you know, he's just such an overflowing of that type of energy that it was so contagious and so infectious, and it stuck with me. You know, it stuck. You know, I was a lot of the, you know, negative parts of me, you know, who like, you know, habits I had and thoughts I had and just energies I had. He, you know, just being in the presence of that type of
Yeah,
love.
it's like a different tuning fork.
Totally.
You know?
It
And you
just-
get caught up in those same
Absolutely.
vibrations, and it changes your tune.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
And he used to tell me that, you know, he'd be walking around and he's like, man, I'll go into Whole Foods and I'll see people with rabbit ears and 3 legs and, you know, 4 eyes and stuff. And I was like, all right, you know, this guy he might, you know, it's interesting, you know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. But then years later, you know, 7 years later or whatever, I'll find myself walking through there, and I realize he was speaking metaphorically as like each individual is just this, like, it basically is just like breaking down the barrier of judgment so much that you see someone for what they are. You see this hairless, weird creature that's like has these holes all over its body, that's excreting all these toxins and fluids and stuff, like shuffling around, trying to like rustle through some shelves to get some food to, you know, put in this open wound it's got in its head, you know, and it is just that weird, you know. But
well, it's the art of seeing. It's one of the oldest, you know, one of the oldest powers that these shamans had. It's the art of seeing, and they all describe it a different way. But you know, being able to sense and see that with your third eye is immensely valuable.
Absolutely.
An immensely valuable skill. And I think to get there, you know, you have to do some of the other stuff we've been saying. You know, you got to align yourself. You got to hit that point of experiential being. You know, you got to find the isness, you know, where we started this whole really cool podcast that came out of a fucking sound test, which is another cool thing. But you got to know what that isness is. You got to know what it is to just be. You got to be open to those vibrations. You got to take care of your body so it's not pushing out bad stimulus that's clouding up the way, preventing you from being in that sense of being. Because, you know, when you're sick or when you're hurting or when something's like that, you can't just be. You got some fucking nagging nerve ending or pain or annoyance that's constantly bothering you. It's way harder to transcend that. So take care of your body.
Absolutely.
Be open to that. Meditate. Find the experience. Get out there and meet cool people that can help your vibrational field and improve as well.
Totally. It's only Robert Anton Wilson can have an illness and be positive about it.
Yeah.
You know, this neoclonism, you know, post-polio syndrome, being like talking and saying, oh, I guess it's really made me empathetic to other people's pain. So I guess you can get a lot out of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, everything in life is a challenge. There are no blessings, no curses. You know, so you just have to overcome that challenge. But you don't need to go finding and seeking extra challenges. You know, there's plenty out there.
They're
you know,
right
might as well give your body the best chance it fucking can. You know,
Absolutely.
really take care of it. And then look, if you do come up with a challenge, you can beat it. You know, you can have. I guess polio is what you're saying. You can be an extremely positive person. I mean, you can get in a nasty car wreck and bounce back and be better for it. That's all possible. But do your best not to be there. Keep your third eye open. Keep your body healthy.
That's right. And it's just because it's the light of consciousness is existing in your body. Whatever happens to that vehicle, man, it doesn't matter. Because that light, nothing can harm or hurt physically that light that's in your own mind. And whatever happens to your body, it doesn't matter. But an important point is, just quickly, as what I was saying about how contagious energy is, good and bad. You know, an example is like if you were having a party here and everyone's having a good time and having drinks and there's nice music. And
sounds so
relaxed.
foreign. Like I can't even imagine that. All right, but go ahead.
And I walk in and I'm like, Aubrey, I'm gonna fucking kill you. The place would go silent, and everyone would go, "Oh
no,
my!"
You don't know.
No, okay. All right,
that would be really a fun experiment.
Let's say a place that didn't have spears on the walls and an archery range out back, and an underground shooting range coming soon, and a bunch of training equipment. All right, let's say someone who isn't a modern samurai.
Right.
Let's say someone who's just a normal dude. Anyway, so the point is, you walk in there and you do that. The room's going to go cold. Everyone's going to tighten up, and go, oh my God. And this negative wave of energy is going to go, flowing through there and bounce off the walls. Like that is super contagious energy because you've walked in and you've manifested that negativity and just blasted it out of you, and it's hit everyone. And like that stuff, people are sponges, man. It's going to all absorb into them.
Yep.
You can do that the opposite. Yep. Turn that around. You walk into a room and express that same amount of positivity, man, it's just as contagious. And if everyone is going around, expressing that level of positivity and just love and caring and optimism for everyone that they're around, that's a step in the right direction.
Indeed, it is
worth keeping in mind.
Indeed, it is. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. So, well, look, man, this has been a fucking real unexpected pleasure. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm glad we got a chance to do this. I think one of those serendipitous alignments that just kind of came about. So I really appreciate it. Cory Allen, is there anything, any way people can find you, get a hold of you, or anything like that? Would you like to tell the people?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you can listen to a little bit of music of mine at Cory, Cory-Allen, ALLDEN.com. That's where some music is. And then my record label, Quiet Design, you can check out some of that lovely music. It's quietdesign.us. And then you can also come to Twitter and read my conversations with other people, or actually have a conversation with me personally. And that's just at Quiet Design, all one word. And yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone that was listening to this. I'd love to talk to you. So
right on, brother. All right. Well, it's good times, and I'll talk to you all next week at Warrior Poet US. WarriorPoet.us is the blog. I'll catch you all later.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Churn that love butter.